Hello, I'm Surya. In this video, I would like to present about the patient management system. There are two sections in this video. The first one is application demonstration, and the second one is the code implementation. Let's start with the application demonstration. The first feature is the authentication. The user click on sign in. There are two roles in this application. The first one is the administrator, and the second one is the patient. If the user role is the administrator, it will navigate to the admin dashboard. The administrator can sign up. If the user logged in as a patient, it will navigate to the home page. Patient can sign out. Next feature is the patient record management. The administrator click on sign in, input the credentials, select manage patient, then the system display a list of patients that already registered in a database. The administrator can add new one. If there are errors, the system will display real-time validation message. Input information. The administrator can also update the information. Click on edit. The administrator can also delete the patient. Next, the administrator can search patient based on the patient ID or the patient name. Next feature is the appointment scheduling. Administrator can schedule appointment. Click on View. The system display the patient information. Click on the schedule appointment. Select the appointment date. Today. Click on Submit. Then the administrator can view the schedule appointment. The administrator can also cancel the appointment. Click on Cancel. Confirm. Then the appointment is cancelled. Okay, the last feature is the reporting. Click on History, and then the system display a list of the appointment history for a patient. Administrator can view all appointments for all patients. Select reports. Administrator can view based on the date range. Select the from date. Select the due date, and then the system display a list of the all appointments for all patients based on the date range. Okay, the last but not least, I also implement the responsive design. This is the overview of the all application flow. Okay, that's all about the application demonstration. Let's move on to the second section. Okay, let's start with the tech stack of this application. The technology that I'm using is the main stack, consists of the Angular, Node.js, Express.js, and MongoDB. For design choice, I'm using Tailwind component, and for the interactivity, I'm using Alpine.js for JavaScript. Next, let's move on to the dependency of this application. Start with the server side, backup to hashing the password, body parser to parsing the HTTP request body, course to handling the connection between front and server side, .env to secure the sensitive information, JSON token for the generate token when authentication, nodemon is to automatically restart the server when the changes made in the server side, share ID to create a unique ID to show on the patient ID. On the client side, Tailwind CSS to design the application, data tables to show the table in the application, Suite alert to show the notification. Next, let's start with the configuration on the server side. This is the configuration for the course and the body parser. This is the connection to the database, and this is the connection for the root. Next, in this application, we have three models. The first one is the user model. It is consists of a user, password, and role. And I also implemented timestamp and also the validation for the schema. The next one is the patient model. It is consists of patient ID, name, DOB, gender, insurance, and contact information. The next one is a appointment model. It has a reference to the patient, date, and status. Next, I will explain the code based on modules. The first module is authentication. First, we have a root for the register, parse the request body, validation, checking if the user exists in the database, passing the password using the crypt, create the user and set to the database. Next route, we have the login, parse the username and password from the request body, validation, checking the user if exists, create a payload, generate token with the user information, create the user information, generate the token using JWT with the user information. And the last one is we have the current user, To check the current user role, the value list comes from the auth middleware. Here we check the authentication of the token, extract the authentication header, validate the token, verify the token with the JWT secret, check the token if expired, if success, attach the user information. Okay, now let's move on to the client side. Here we are implement the auth model, ID from MongoDB, email, optional password, role, and timestamp. Next, we hit the endpoint on the services, create API-based URL, and then we have a login method with the username and password, and send a post request without credentials, and then return we get the token. Next, we have the get current user to get the current user, and then get current user to get the value from the local storage. We are also have get token from the local storage, and then logout method to remove the value from the token and current user. Next, we subscribe the auth service on the component using RxJS. Here we need the auth service, form builder, notification, and router. Next, we initialize the login form using reactive form and some validation. Next, on login method, if the form is valid, and then we check the value from the login form, and then we subscribe the copy giving the value, and then we set the token on local storage, and then here we explicitly catch the error with a different status code. Next, we have the get current user. To manage the current user, here we subscribe the get current user, set the current user value to the local storage, and we navigate the user based on the current role. Here we explicitly also catch the error. Next, on the template, here we have the form with the username, and then we have the real-time validation for a username. We also have the for the password, and also include the real-time validation. Here, the button is disabled when the login form is invalid. Next, if login is success, we also implement the outguard to protect the root. Here, we are checking the current user role from the get current user. If the current user is administrator, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. Next, we implement the outguard in the routing to protect the admin menu that only accessed by administrator. Next, we also implement the auth interceptor to access the protected route on the server side. Here we create a header with authorization, barrier, and auth token. Okay, the last code for the authentication is the logout. Here we are using the suite alert to confirm the sign out, and then we call the logout method on the auth surface and navigate to the initial route. Now let's continue to the next functionality, patient record management. The first one, we implement the patient model. We have the required field for patient ID. This is using short ID letter, name, DOB, gender, address, and contact info. We also implement the timestamp. Next, we implement the patient route. Here we have the function to validate the date format, validate the gender, and then for the first route, we have the add patient with the protected by the auth middleware. Here we extract the request body, validate the request body, and then we call the function to validate date and the gender. Create a patient ID using the short ID, create a patient, and save to the database. Next, you have the route to get all patient, and then return the patient. Next, you have the route for the get patient by ID, find the patient by ID from the request param ID. If not exists, return error, otherwise return the patient. Next, you have the route for the edit patient, extract from the request body, validate the field, find the patient and update, and then if not exists, return error, otherwise return the message and the patient. Next, we have the route for the delete patient, find a patient by ID, and also delete. If not exists, return error, otherwise return success message. Next, let's continue to the client side. Here we have the patient model, ID from MongoDB, patient ID to show to the user, name, DOB, gender, address, contact info, and timestamp. Next, we create a method endpoint, private URL for the patient, get the patient to get all patients. This is the get patient by ID, a patient with the parameter patient object, the patient with the parameter ID with the patient object, and delete the patient method with ID. Next, we subscribe the method on the component. Here we need the patient service, router, and also notification. Next, we initialization the patient. Here we subscribe the get patient, initialize the patient with the response. Next, after initialization of patient, we initialize the data tables option and refresh the tables. Here we have the action for the delete patient using suite alert. If confirm, subscribe the delete, and catch the error explicitly. Here, add patient and edit patient will navigate to the same component. First, create the patient object, and then during the initialization, check the patient ID from the request param. If patient ID exists, it will edit page, get the patient, initialize the patient object with the response. Here we also format the DOB from the response. Next, we have the save patient that takes form from the ng form. If the form is invalid, return the error. If the patient ID exists, it will edit the patient, then navigate to the view patient. Catch the error explicitly, otherwise it will be add patient, then navigate back to the list of patient. Here we also catch the error explicitly. Okay, on the template we have the form. If the patient ID exists, the title will be edit, otherwise it will be add patient. Next, we have the input for the name using ng model. This is real-time validation. Here we have another input for the DOB, and the validation message, and will be the same for the rest required field. Okay, so that's all about the patient record management. Let's continue to the next functionality, appointment scheduling. Implement the model on the server side. We have the reference to the patient using patient ID. We have date and status. On our route, first we post the schedule appointment based on the patient ID and protect the route using the out middleware. Extract the patient ID, create appointment object, and save to the database. Next, we have to get route to get appointment based on the patient ID, protect the out middleware, extract the patient ID, find the patient, and populate with the patient ID. Return the appointments. Next, we have the patch request to update the status of the appointment, find the appointment, and update based on the ID and also the status from the request body, and return the appointment. Continue to the client side. Here we implement the appointment model, ID, patient ID, date, and status. Create a method to hit the endpoint. Create a base URL for the appointments. Here we have the schedule appointments and the patient object and patient ID. We get the appointment method based on the patient ID, and we also have the cancel appointment method to update the status appointment to the cancel. On the component, we create a patient ID, appointment. This is the configuration for the tables, and this one for the show and hide element. During the initialization, we receive the patient ID. If it says it will be initialize the appointment based on the patient and also the patient details. For the view initialization, we initialize the option for the tables. This is for unsubscribe the tables. Show and hide element. We have the schedule appointment that require a form from the engine form. If invalid, it will be return error. If the patient ID exists, it will be initialize the appointment based on the patient ID and reinitialize the tables. Next, we have to cancel appointment based on the appointment ID. To confirm, it will be then reinitialize the tables. Here, catch the error explicitly. The next feature is the search. It is already provided by the data tables. By the value searching to true. Next, on a template, if the patient exists, it will be show the information of the patient. This is the button to open the form. If the show form is true, create the form using ng model. Input the date. This is the validation for the date. This is the button to close the form. Next, we can view the appointment schedule. We show the table using data tables related to another functionality, which is the reporting. Here, we create the route to get all appointments based on the patient, create a method endpoint on this appointment service. Then we subscribe on the report component. This is the appointment entity, table configuration. This for the filtering from date and to date. During the session, we initialize the appointment and also filter appointment, and we implement the filtering logic here. If the from date and to date valid, update the filter appointment based on the filtering date. Otherwise, use default data that is not filtered. On the template for the report, here we have the input for the from date, input from the to date, and then implement the table. Okay, that's all about the implementation of the functionality. Before we close, I would like to report some bug and error of this application. So there is an error related to the reinitialization of the data tables. The second one is that the table is not fully responsive. However, even though I already reset the responsive to true. The last one regarding unit tasks, you can access from the branch unit tasks. However, there is an error regarding the ES modules, so I can't run the unit tasks. Okay, that's all about the patient management system. I'm Surya Paradita. Thank you for your time and thank you for watching this video.